think we're live, hopefully.
We're live.
Wait a minute.
Yep, it says live.
Are we live, Julie?
Yes,
What time is it?
7:02.
7:02. At this time, I'd like to call the Galion City Council meeting to order. It's January 26th. It's about 2 minutes after 7. And first we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I have a flag here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a moment of silence here.
Of the United States of America,
Well,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
okay, we'll have a roll call of council members.
Ms. Alt,
Here.
Mr. Bodkins,
Here.
Ms. Earlston,
Here.
Dr. Fellner,
Here.
Mr. Ivy,
Here.
Mr. Richard,
Here.
Mr. Triplett.
Here.
All 7 members are present. Next roll call of elected official, Safety Service Director.
Mayor O'Leary,
Here.
Auditor Baldinger,
Here.
Director of Law Palmer,
You muted.
you're muted. Director of Law Palmer here. I think he's really delayed for some reason. Treasurer Sparks. Safety Service Director Ward.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we need the approval of the minutes of the January 12th regular council meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular council, the last minutes of the regular council meeting.
Mrs. Earlston made the motion, seconded by Mr. Richards. Any additions or corrections? If none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed likewise, the minutes of the January 12th
Here,
been approved.
here,
Okay.
here, here, here.
Hear you now, okay? Okay, next we have to add some of the ordinances to the agenda. First is ordinance, get them right here, ordinance 2021-6. Have a motion to add that to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance 2021-6 to the agenda.
Motion by Dr. Feldner, seconded by,
I'll make the second.
okay, Ms. Alt, roll call.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passed by a 7-0 vote to be added to the agenda. Next is ordinance 2021-9. Do I hear a motion to add that to the agenda?
I'll make the motion to add 2021-9 to the agenda. It's Ivy.
Okay, Ivy made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, that was by Dr.
Fellner?
Fellner, okay, roll call.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-9 has been added by a 7-0 vote to the agenda. Next ordinance 2021-10. Do you have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to add ordinance number 2020-10 to the agenda.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Auld, seconded by
Ivy.
Mr. Ivy, roll call.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
The ordinance 2021-10 has been added by 7-0 vote. Next is resolution 2021-4. Do I have a motion to add that to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to add resolution number 2021-4 to the agenda.
Mr. Earlston made the motions, second by Mr. Ivy? Was that-
Triplet.
Hopkins.
Triplett, seconded it.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-4 has been added by 7-0 vote. And next is ordinance 2021 what is it, 11?
11.
11.
Mr. President,
Mr. Richard?
yeah, I'd like to take and suggest that this ordinance not be approved for the agenda for tonight. There's two reasons I'm thinking that this is a little premature. One is that it is a ordinance for a service work for McKeever and Associates for the city in the amount of $90,000. That's going to be coming out of the utility funds. As a member of the utility committee, we've had ongoing discussions about some issues in the balances and the amounts in those funds as far as where they're going to be going in the future. The other thing is that this is related to a project out on 598 referred to as the Free Center. Because of the fact that we have not as a group seen anything in the sense of deciding whether we're even going to do this project. I think this is a little bit premature to start spending $90,000. I would suggest that this be held off until possibly when the actual ordinances or actual items come before the council related to this. I'd like to know if other members agree with that.
Yes, I agree.
Mr. President, this is Ivy. I express the same sentiment at the Economic Development Committee meeting. Until we have an up or down vote, I don't believe that we should invest any more money. We've already invested a few hundred or a couple $100,000. And I thank you very much.
Any other
I
comments?
agree also.
I agree as well. Yes.
Okay, Mr. President,
Yes.
it's certainly the council meeting. I just want to make 2 points. One is a real technical one. I won't dwell on it. The majority of probably 60% of 50% of that 90,000 won't be against the utility funds, but will be charged against the technical services line in 201, the street department or the street fund. Mike's right, absolutely, that around 8,000 or 9,000 per utility will be charged back under the plan, charged back to that, to those utility funds that Mike mentioned. But most of the money for the 90,000 will come from 201. The second thing I'd want to mention is that this money is in the budget. I was going to explain that this would crowd out other things in that same 201. But if the money is in the budget, we really, I think I guess I'll make it I decided to bring that together. We could have parceled out those 4 or 5 funds and funded it in that limit between Board of Control and needing to bid. But I thought that would be perceived, and I'm glad that we did it that way because council's not ready to do the engineering apparently. But we brought this, aggregated this 90,000 in order to begin to get some feedback from council about whether the big question, as Mike pointed out, the project, if you will, has council support. Third thing I'd want to mention, just in the briefest way, is that this was had support of the committee. There was a little discussion between myself and the law director whether or not it was quote unquote voted out of committee. But I do believe that the finance committee that looked at this, the recommendation to have it funded in this manner really came out of finance committee. So, you know, I'm very much interested in having a strong consensus on whether we move ahead, but I wanted to mention those 3 or 4 items to sort of clarify the record. This didn't just, shouldn't be seen as being sprung on council. It was discussed fully at finance, unanimously decided to bring this to council. So, you know, it's Mike's position to, in effect, what would be the right word? Table, you know, make a motion to table this. I'm not sure the current motion is to not allow it onto the agenda. That's not, I don't know. But I'll defer. Those are my points, Mr. President.
Okay. Mr. Earlston?
Yeah, just kind of a little in response to that. As someone on the finance committee, we did discuss this, but it was also offered by the Port Authority to possibly pick this up as well. So I'm not sure that, you know, the thoughts on that are, you know, unanimous about that. I'm not sure if that,
Well,
I would say that.
I remember, I take responsibility for the idea that the city pay this portion of it. You're right, Ms. Earlston, that the Port Authority made an offer to pay for the engineering, but in exchange for the payment for the engineering, they wanted assurance that we would build the project. And that's having even further pressure to make a decision without the facts before us, as everyone on the council agrees that that's not going to happen. So I felt like, and I don't even know why we're discussing this, because we've got a motion. So if we're going to take this off of the agenda, then we shouldn't have discussion right now. We should have it either in other business or another committee meeting. So Mike, do you want to rephrase your motion?
He didn't have a motion.
Well, do you want to make a motion?
There is no motion, Dr. Fellner.
I'm sorry?
You don't need a motion if it's not going to go on the agenda. There's just, if no one makes a motion to put it on the agenda, it doesn't go on the agenda.
I see.
He's right. There's 3 choices. We could either let it go through the first hearing without any further decision, we can table it, or we, by not putting voting it on the agenda, that will take care of it for tonight. Any other comments by any of the other council members?
Yep.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to place ordinance 2021-11 onto the agenda.
For the motion by Dr. Fellner, is there a second? Okay, if none, the motion drops for lack of second, and we'll move on to the next and last one to be added to the agenda is let me see, Resolution 2021-5. Have a motion to add that to the agenda?
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to add resolution 2021-5 to tonight's agenda.
Okay, Mr. Richard made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we second by Mr. Triplett. Roll call.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2021-5 has been added to the agenda by a 7-0 vote. I'd just like to state at this time, Julie called me this afternoon about adding that to the agenda. I know there's been some discussion about adding things at the last minute, but this is appointment and probably needs to have a person in effect for them to operate and have quorum. So I said, yes, go ahead with it. And that's how it got on the agenda. Okay, moving on to legislation now.
No,
First is,
we need to approve the agenda as amended.
that's right. Thank you. Do we
I'll
have
make
a,
a motion to approve the amended agenda.
okay, motion by Dr. Fellner. We have a second.
Second.
Ivy.
Second that.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion to approve the agenda as amended has been approved. Now, moving on to legislation ordinance 2021-4. This is the first reading.
Sorry, wasn't quite there yet. Okay. Ordinance number 2021-4, entitled ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-9, permanent 2021 appropriations by making a correction to the general fund total and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of the ordinance, discussion.
Yes, this ordinance came through Finance Committee. And Eunice, are you with us today?
Yes, she is.
Or Mr. Baldinger, can you just elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn that over to Eunice because I'm just not real sure about these numbers. I don't want to mislead you guys.
Okay.
Eunice?
She
Well,
muted?
no, I'm here. I did not prepare this or come up with this. If you guys will recall at finance, this was presented. I'm not sure. I'm almost going to defer to Julie because I guess this needs an amendment because when it was amended at finance, the wrong amount was put in for, is it section 2, I believe, or something?
Well, the whole ordinance, the section 1 is amending the general fund total from 5,230,367 to 5,290,367. And then during finance, we added section 2 to amend the overall total from 37,817,419, adding the same 60,000 to that to make that 37,877,419. But it was discovered after that that total was incorrect, that section 2 should actually be changed from 37,817,419 to 36,817,224. So this ordinance will need an amendment on the floor because as it was passed out of Finance Committee, it is not correct.
And I will add to that just to clarify, because I'm sure that there is some confusion. But council's level of authority is to approve by category. When those sheets are done, there's formulas in them and it has a domino effect. So when the general fund is changed, it changes things in the formulas throughout the spreadsheet. During Finance Committee, I did not have access to the spreadsheet or any reports, so I was not aware that the incorrect number was put in for the total of all funds until I was able to get in the next day and verify.
Thank you. Other questions?
So, Julie or Eunice, what motion do we need to do to at least get the paperwork correct as it stands right now?
Right.
There's a page that reflects what the correction should be, correct, Julie?
Yes.
right.
Behind the whole thing,
So-
section 2 of
Number 2.
number 2 of section 2 needs corrected to what it says.
Yada, 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 224.
Yes. yes,
Okay.
yes.
What I'd like to do then is, unless there's somebody else would like to make another comment, I'd just like to make a motion to amend ordinance 2021-4, number 2, section 2, to read on the total all funds. Currently it reads 37, I'm just going to give you numbers, 37,817,419.00 to 36,817,224.00.
Thank you. Heard the motion to amend this by Mr. Richard. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, and Ms. Alt seconded. Discussion of the amendment. If not, roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
The amendment has passed by 7-0 vote. A discussion on the ordinance.
Does this need to be an emergency?
As far as I'm concerned from our office, we didn't request this. It has no effect on our office. When I get the ordinance, I'm not going to do anything with it in the system because I've already entered the budget by category that you guys approved and it's automatically calculated. So I don't know if it needs to be an emergency or not. It has no bearing on our office at all.
The only bearing this has is when I get requests for copies of the budget. And when I send the copies out, I would like them to be correct. So however you guys want to do that, whether, you know, if I send it out now, doesn't have the correct totals that go out. So that's up to you guys.
So you would be sending that out like tomorrow?
Well, whenever I get asked for it, I get asked for it multiple times throughout the year. I'll get asked for a copy of the budget ordinance and I'll scan it and send it out. So
For future reference, would it be possible to simplify it and use the budget from the system itself for that?
well, this is the ordinance, and if they want the
I
ordinance.
understand that,
Yeah,
but
that's-
use the budget from the system as the attachment to the ordinance.
If it would be available when we do because whatever is attached when we approve the ordinance is what goes there. So
Yes.
The amendment's been passed. Is there any reason why we would not want to suspend?
Correct.
Move it on.
Mr. President, I was going to say this seems to be literally a correction for the budget for this year. So I don't see a reason why we can't go ahead and move this to a final reading. Having said that, I will make a motion to move ordinance, look it up, 2021-4 to the final reading.
Heard the motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Richard. Is there a second?
Ivy.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed by a 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the ordinance.
I just would like a little clarification on the amendments. Excuse me. Yes, the motion, the amended. For the total of all funds, we're going from 37,817,000 to 36,817,000.
224.
Yes.
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 I'm just confused as in section A, there was only a $60,000 difference. And in section 2, there appears to be more than a $60,000 difference, or am I? incorrectly
You
adding.
are correct. I'm not sure how that, like you just said, yeah, it was like in the formula somewhere.
Well, it's like $1 million.
Yeah.
And we also had $1 million error in 7080 that was fixed on the spot.
Okay,
There, like I said, there is a trickle down effect. The
Yes.
spreadsheet becomes kind of complicated.
of
And
course.
without being able to go through and check each section and trying to do it on the spot, there was an error in a formula, and that's how it happened.
Thank you.
But the
That was-
categories that you guys approved are in the system, and running the
Okay.
report and matching it to the ordinance, everything is correct.
Okay,
None of
thank
those
you very much.
changed. I want to stress that none of those changed.
Mr. Triplett,
I'd like to make a motion to pass 2021-4.
heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do I hear a second? Mr. Bodkin seconded it. Discussion? And roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes,
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes,
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-4 is passed by 7-0 vote. Now ordinance 2021-5, first reading.
Ordinance number 2021-5, entitled ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-92, permanent 2021 appropriations by appropriating and transferring funds in various funds and declaring an emergency.
You've heard the reading of the ordinance, the discussion.
yes, ordinance 2021-5 also came through finance. And it is something that we knew was coming down the pike when we passed the budget late last year, and that is putting the Corona dollars in the right pew. Is that a fair assessment, Eunice?
Yes, it was actually the day that we were passing the budget that we got the final word that the CARES Act money was going to be extended through 2021. So
Right.
we had not originally appropriated that money. Rather than trying to scramble the same day and make changes, we decided to wait and come back and appropriate it. So as Doc referred, we did know this was coming. There are other parts and sections though to this ordinance that ties to the CARES Act money, but so section 2 and 3 appropriates the money into the contractual services and the operating supplies or materials and supplies category for Fund 267, which is the CARES Act. That gives the balance that what we have at the time. I also want to note that as we go forward, whether we get more funding or not, we could have additional appropriations coming, because as long as there is money in this fund, it is earning interest. So it may not be towards the end of the year or whatever, but we may make another appropriation to appropriate the interest that has been earned as well. Just kind of a heads up on that. Section 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all related. So we did the utility refunds, the program that we did for that. And we've had a couple of errors that we needed to go back and fix. So previously, you guys had passed an ordinance where we took money from the CARES Act and appropriated it into revenue funds for water, sewer, electric, and stormwater for those utility credits that we gave the citizens. We had one customer that had 2 different accounts, and they got 2 credits, but they were all applied to one account. So that affects the percentages and how that was broke down, giving a different number. And then we had one customer that was inadvertently charged $100 instead of credited $100. So that took them basically the other way by a total of $200. So the $58.61 in section 5 is actually a deduction going back going back because of the adjustments of the percentages. And then 6 is for sewer, 7 is for the stormwater. And that gives them the credits going back. And if you add, can't remember how I said that exactly, but if you add those up, then it equals the $200 total for the transactions and the movement of money.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for explaining that. Further discussion?
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on ordinance 2021-5.
Heard the motion by Dr. Fellner, have a second. Mr. Bodkin seconded it. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkin,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
The motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 2021-5 is passed by a 7-0 vote. Discussion on the ordinance. Mr. Triplett.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-5.
Thank you. Mr. Triplett made the motions. Do we have a second? Mr. Bodkin seconded it. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
The ordinance 2021-5 is passed by a 7-0 vote. Next is ordinance 2021-6, first reading.
Ordinance number 2021-6, entitled ordinance authorizing the safety service director to accept certain easements and acquisitions of property relating to 2 parcels adjacent to State Route 598 widening project to execute any and all documents relating thereto, to pay the owners of said parcels the negotiated amounts for the acquisition of said property rights and declaring an emergency.
The discussion, Mr. Palmer.
Yes, this is 2 of the, we had 8 that were left at the end of the process in terms of negotiating with property owners or even contacting property owners. And 2 of them, fortunately, in the last couple weeks, we've been able to contact, and they've agreed to the amounts. So this is authorizing us to expend these amounts to acquire these temporary easements, and they're not going to go to court.
Thank you. Discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on ordinance 2021-6.
Heard the motion by Dr. Fellner, second by Mrs. Earlston. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules on this ordinance passed by 7-0 vote. Discussion on the ordinance.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pass 2021-5.
6.
6, sorry.
Second, made the motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Richards made the second. Discussion? And roll call.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
And this ordinance passed by 7-0 vote also. Next is ordinance 2021-8, first reading.
7.
7, I skipped one. 7.
Ordinance number 2021-7, entitled ordinance authorizing the fire chief and or safety service director to apply for a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, under the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Program in the amount of $25,000 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Discussion, Chief Jackson's with us. Do you want to explain this?
I would, thank you, Carl. The first one is a repeat of 2019's grant where we tried to upgrade our capability to deliver fire extinguisher training to the area businesses with low cost, and it helps them. They need it as part of their, workman's comp stuff and some of their insurance stuff. They need to have extinguisher training. Almost every company does. And this allowed us to not have to go to the old school route of bringing cans of diesel fuel and lighting them on fire and having them buy real extinguishers and spraying them out. Currently, we have a propane system we're using, but it's old, it's aging, it's enormous, and the cost is in the gas. Well, we're looking to utilize a federal grant system to purchase one that's more high tech. It's like a video screen system, and the grant, like most FEMA grants, is 95% funded by the federal government, 5% funded locally. And we've got funds in our fire safety account to pay our 5% share. So the numbers would break down to $25,000 grant is what we're looking to get. The federal share being $23,800, and the local share being just $1,100. So I think it's well worth us trying to get that. There's no guarantee of it. There's only 100 awards given out on fire prevention and safety. And if you can recall back when we did the smoke detector house numbering program, we were one of those that received that. So it's a very competitive, but I think we've got a good argument. And Julie, the one thing in the ordinance title I noticed compared to 2021-8 is the language apply for and accept. So I'm wondering if we can't make that modification like we did, or we have for the last couple of years with FEMA grants. And just going to council now.
Check that one. So. Oh, okay. Yeah, they could add that. The next one does say and accept. So yeah, this one.
And we've done that for the last couple of years because of that purpose.
You've got it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Application period ends for this one on February 26th. So, and it opened yesterday. So
We would need a amendment to add that to and accept. So.
Okay, do we have an amendment to make this change?
I'll make a motion to amend it to accept.
Okay.
And accept to the title, because it does say and accept down in the bottom. It just doesn't say it in the title. So.
Mr. Triplett made the motion, seconded by Mr. Earlston. Discussion? None, roll call.
Ready for roll call? Sorry. Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins.
Yes.
The amendment is passed, 7-0 vote. Now, is there urgency on this, Chief?
As I said, Carl, the application period started yesterday, and I've got I got a month. I got till February 26th. So
Okay.
it's really up to council. There's not an urgency as far as getting the application done, but I wouldn't send it off until we got approval.
I think Mr. Triplett.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and go to the final reading on 2021-7.
We've heard the motion by Mr. Triplett, and second by Mr. Bodkins. Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner. We lost Dr. Fellner.
Dr.
You're
Fellner?
muted. He's muted.
Yes, he's waving yes. Okay.
Yes, okay. All right, Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Okay, it passed by 7-0 vote. One was a wave, but that's fine too. Discussion on the ordinance.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-7.
Okay, Mr. Richard made the motion. A
I'll
second,
second.
Mr. Bodkin.
Ivy,
Ivy seconded.
Okay, well, Mr. Bodkins had his hand up, but
Oh.
Mr. Ivy seconded.
Yeah.
Discussion? And roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that passed by 7-0 vote. Now, discussion on the ordinance?
Nope,
Oh, we
Nope.
did,
we just,
we did that. Okay, moving on now to ordinance 2021-8, first reading.
ordinance number 2021-8, entitled ordinance authorizing the fire chief and or safety service director to apply for and accept a grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security DHS under the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in the total amount of $48,432 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, you heard the reading of the ordinance, the first reading. Chief Jackson?
On again. Mark, I'll try not to whine as much this time. So,
Okay,
this one is really part of a similar program. I mean, the FEMA is a few different parts. You've got the equipment part, and what you just passed was the fire prevention and safety. And then they've got the SAFER, if you remember, that's a staffing one that we did last year. This one is for equipment, and we've done a wonderful job over the years with the city's blessing, and you're all voting for us to keep trying with supplying a lot of equipment for the firehouse. $1.5 million off the top of my head is what we purchased over the years using federal dollars. This one's for hose. It's one of the things that we use every fire. You lose a section or two, and you lose some more sections when you test it every year. And the small hose is cheap, but when you get into the 5-inch hose, it's pretty expensive. $700,000, $800,000 a section, and you lose a few sections with some of the big fires like we have. It adds up quick. So what we're looking to do is instead of buying onesie twosies here, is go for a grant to replace all of our hose, both supply and attack hose. Same parameters as far as 95% federal share, 5% local share. This one, federal government puts out like $320 million, and there's 2,000 awards, and we've done really well with getting this in the past. As I said, our share of that $48,432 is $2,300, and the federal share would be $46,000. So again, I would love for you to approve us going forth doing that grant. This one is even more urgent. The period started back on January 4th and ends on February 12th.
thank you. Any other questions of the chief?
I do have one. Phil, would you, this is for replacement of all the hoses, you said?
It is, yeah.
And would you keep good sections as backup or?
Yeah. That's where we're limited right now, Doc, is we don't have a whole buildup of backup hose.
Okay,
So what everything we have is basically on the trucks, and we need to have some backup supply for when something happens. So
Great.
yes, we would hold on to what still had a decent usable life. The rest usually go to water treatment plant, a wastewater for them to use for different things, utilities around the city. That's what we do with our discarded hose.
great. Thank you.
Other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on ordinance 2021-8.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, you heard the motion by Dr. Fellner to suspend the rules, second by Mrs. Earlston. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins.
Yes.
Okay, it passed by a 7-0 vote. Thank you, Chief, for explaining both of those ordinances, okay? Then, let me see, discussion?
Need a motion to, okay,
Right. Need a motion on the ordinance?
Mark.
Mr. Triplett,
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-8.
You heard the motion by Mr. Triplett, second by Mr. Bodkins. Now discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
It passed by a 7-0 vote. Moving on to ordinance 2021-9, first reading.
Ordinance number 2021-9 entitled ordinance authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to apply for and accept a Save America's Treasures Program grant for the Big Ford Depot and declaring an emergency.
You've heard the reading of the ordinance. It's first reading, a discussion. Who wants to take the lead on this? Mayor, would you?
I'll start by saying it was, this idea is initiated out of the mayor's office. And I think it's consistent with the theme that Chief Jackson was mentioning. There's funds out there, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so I was glad to see the support for the fire department. This is very similar. This is going after some grants to support and further the renovation of the depot. So beyond that, if there are detailed questions or specific questions, I know Matt's on board. He's the person that developed the application. So it's really just an authorization. Again, wanting to go through council to make sure that there wasn't any sense that we were doing stuff without their support. So it really is a, just trying to gain councilmatic support for the application.
Matt, would you like to add anything to the mayor's comment?
That pretty well covers it. I guess the only thing I would add is the grant amount we're requesting is $150,000. And yes, that does come with a match. We, as far as we know, do have the match already. Seneca Crawford Area Transportation has secured funding from ODOT to help with basically the area that they would eventually lease from us. So we've already got matching funds to put towards this. This basically just doubles the amount of funding we have available to continue restoration on the building.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Earlston?
So this wouldn't be coming out of the budget?
What's that, please?
Want to repeat that?
So this wouldn't be coming out of the budget? You were getting the matching funds from ODOT?
No, it wouldn't. We'll use the match that ODOT is going to supply by doing their improvements. So there won't be when the approval, thinking optimistically, when the approval of the SCAT grant request is made by ODOT, we'll need to likely appropriate the funds, and then the funds will flow from ODOT through SCAT to us for the improvement of our building. But this won't require a match unless we're awarded. Matt wrote the grant so that the previous dollars put in or committed act as our match.
Okay.
Okay,
Another question. Have we ever applied for this before? Is this a new grant? Is this something we've done and received before?
Matt, fire away.
No, we have not applied for this in the past, but it is not a new grant program, no.
Okay.
Other discussion, Eunice?
Just a real quick question / comment either for the mayor and or Matt. Just keep me in the loop on that in case we need to file an amended certificate depending on what monies we do receive, like if we get the ODOT and that too, please.
Yeah, you're right. I'll rush to the media first, and then I'll call you after we announce. If we were able, if Matt in this effort's able to land the funds, it'll be a good day for Galleon, a good day for the depot. So yeah, for sure, Eunice. Okay.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
And do I hear a motion of some sort?
I have a question first. President, Matt or the mayor, is there a time issue here with this?
I think there is a impending deadline, but go ahead, Matt, please.
Yes, grant is officially due by Friday. I'm trying to get it in prior to that, just to make sure it's a pretty complicated system that we have to submit it to. As Nikki can attest, I've been beating my head against a wall trying to get all our information updated.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Richard?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always been a big supporter of the depot, so I would like to make a motion at this time to suspend the rules on 2021-9 and move it to the final reading.
Heard the motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Richards. I have a second by Mrs. Earlston. Ms. Earlston, roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins.
Yes.
We suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now the discussion on the,
Mr. President, unless there's further discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 2021-9.
okay, you heard the motion by Mr. Richards, and seconded by
Second.
Mr. Triplett. Discussion and roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Okay, orders 2021-10 is passed by 7-0 vote.
Or 9.
Nine, yes, 9. And now moving on to ordinance 2021-10, the first reading.
Ordinance number 2021-10, entitled Ordinance Amending Ordinance Number 2020-92, Permanent 2021 Appropriations, transferring funds to the Health Department Fund and declaring an emergency.
You've heard the reading of this first reading. Discussion. Who wants to take it?
I'll take it, Carl.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just merely the $303,880 that is the health department's grant. It's appropriated in the 101 fund, and it just needs to be moved over to the new health subsidy line of 230 fund. So Eunice, if you have anything else, take it.
No, that was perfect, Gail. This, and just to clarify, this is just the movement of the cash.
Right. Okay. Further
I'd
discussion?
like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on ordinance 2021-10.
Heard the
I'll
motion
second.
by Dr. Fellner, seconded by was it Ivy, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe. Okay. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston.
Yes.
Passed by 7-0 vote. No discussion on the ordinance. Mr. Triplett.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-10.
Okay, we heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Bodkins. Discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
The ordinance 2021-10 is passed final reading for 7-0 vote. Moving on to resolution 2021-4, its first reading.
Resolution number 2021-4, entitled Resolution Approving and Ratifying the Prior Acts of the Department Heads and Safety Service Director and approving a then and now certificate for said expenditure and declaring an emergency.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution. Discussion. Who wants to take this one? Eunice or Gail or?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Good
This,
Eunice.
this is not going to be the last one. I know that there's another one that'll be coming through the system. But if you guys will recall, you get a lot of these at the first of the year, sometimes for bills that come in when we are shut down. This one in particular, I'm not sure of the date on it or how it flowed, but this is for GPD group that the line department, I don't know what the timing was of them getting it, but they did not have a purchase order for it. And since it's over the 3,000, it needs to come to you for approval on the then and now.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve, suspend the rules on resolution 2021-4 and move to the final reading.
Heard the motion to suspend the rules by Dr. Fellner, seconded by Mrs. Earlston, second. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins.
Yes.
Suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Discussion on the resolution. Any discussion? Mr. Triplett? Mr. Triplett?
You're
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Richards, okay?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pass resolution 2021-4.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Seconded by
Second.
Mr. Triplett, seconded it. Discussion. And roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
The resolution 2021-4 is passed the final reading by 7-0 vote. And the last piece of legislation is resolution number 2021-5, first reading.
Resolution number 2021-5 entitled Resolution Approving the Appointment of Candace Yocum to the Galleon City Health Board as appointed by the city mayor and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mayor, any?
I just, thank you, Carl. I would say that we had opportunity to interview two persons, both qualified. I think the selections based on Candy's previous experience as a public official and her kind of long-term interest in the public health needs in working with the senior community. So feel pretty good about her willingness to serve. The other person that expressed an interest, I really am confident that there's an appointment in the future if she's willing to accept it on some other boards and commissions that we have to make appointments to. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody discussion on this? Anybody else? And this is effective the 1st of January.
No, the ordinance says tomorrow, the 27th.
27th, okay. Somebody want to make a motion to suspend the rules?
Mr.
I,
President, go ahead, Tammy.
before I make the motion, I just want to say that I had her in second grade and she was a very good student, so. So I'll make the motion to approve Candace Yocum for the Board of
Suspend the
Health.
rules is where
Yes.
we're.
Oh, suspend the rules. Yes, suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Earlston. We have a second. Mr. Richards seconded it. Roll call.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Ms. Alt,
Is all.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
A motion passed by 7-0 vote to suspend the rules. Now discussion on the resolution. Mr. Triplett.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 2021-5.
You heard the motion, second by Mr. Bodkins. The motion was made by Mr. Triplett, second by Mr. Bodkins. Discussion? And roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston. You're muted.
Ms. Earlston?
Yes. Sorry.
Dr. Fel-
Okay, moving on.
Wait a minute, Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Ms. Alt.
Yes.
It passes by 7-0 vote, final reading. Moving on to other business. Who wants to take the lead here on upcoming committee meetings? Mr. Richard?
On ordinance will be next Tuesday, am I correct? Julie, I don't have a calendar in front of me.
It is Tuesday.
Yeah, let me, yes, get it.
Okay.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
7 o'clock Zoom.
Okay.
Mr. Triplett, you're next.
February 3rd will be utilities. That's on next Wednesday via Zoom, and Gail will be ready for the PCA.
Yeah, Nikki and I is going to be scheduling a meeting for Thursday, I believe at 10 o'clock to discuss that. Yeah, and we should have an answer for you then.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Earlston?
Police, fire, and health will be on Thursday, the 18th via Zoom.
Thank you. Mr. Bodkins?
Streets will be on February 11th, 7 o'clock, Zoom.
Thank you. Mr. Ivy?
Oh, hold on just a moment. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm heading to Oklahoma, so forgive me. Help me with the calendar. I'm sure that we need to get together on Zoom. We have requests of projects coming up this year.
2/10 would be his date, February 2nd.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and plan on 2/10 or February 10th at 7 o'clock via Zoom.
Thank you. Dr. Fellner?
Yes, Economic Development and Airport will be on Fat Tuesday, the 16th, and Finance on Ash Wednesday, the 17th.
Thank you. Any other discussion or anybody else want to bring up anything on other business here from council?
If I could just, this is Ivy. I was watching the mayor last night, and I was wondering, with the technology that we have and the size of our chamber halls, could we consider, if the health director's on here, looking into convening in chamber halls, yet bringing our phone or our laptop and having a Zoom connection for the public forum as well? Is that a possibility?
Okay, anybody want to answer that? Are we still on a maximum of 10 people?
Well, we could, that room at 6 foot socially distanced, I have it counted out, you can have like 14 people total. That's
So
what
that would cover all of us. But I'm just saying, it's just something to consider and look into. It doesn't have to be answered tonight if the health director's on here. If we can maintain social distance and have a public forum via Zoom,
Yeah,
it'd be nice to see everybody again in real life.
yeah. Everybody'd have to wear masks, I would think, but
Is everybody going to agree to wear a mask in there?
No.
I got
Evan Jess.
Okay.
Well,
Tammy's
there's
raising her hand, Carl.
Mrs. Earlston?
I was just wondering if everybody had an opportunity to look at the survey that we would like to send out to get some feedback on the Freeze Center.
I did, Ms. Earlston, and I'm have to applaud you and Ms. Alt for constructing that. I think that's a really good step, given the diverse opinions that were expressed tonight concerning the project. So let's get the public's input and see what happens.
Well, if it's okay, I think we both wanted to make sure that everybody was okay with what we had written up. And if everybody feels comfortable with that, I think Julie was going to go ahead and take care of it and send that out via
Everybody happy with that, or do you want to make any changes, suggest any changes to the?
Yeah, does
Well,
anybody? have any-
not to be porcupine-like about that, but I don't think I've seen it. And if the service director has seen it and signed off, I'm all right with that. But the idea of sending it out in the utility bills, I think's a good idea, but I think it'd be nice if service director and mayor got to see the survey. I'm
Okay.
assuming that everybody else took a look at it. I think the idea is excellent. But I want to take a look at it before I commit to, these 5 questions or whatever the case may be. I think the
Yeah,
idea,
we were
excellent.
both open
Huh?
to, I think we were both open to any feedback.
Yeah, so send it to us so we can take a look at it. And I think unless there is some objection to trying to get feedback to something that's been worked on for years, then I think we'll go ahead and take a look at you and Kara's work product and turn it into an insert in the utility bills.
Okay, I think, Julie, there were different avenues that we were sending it out. We were going to do the utility, and what were the other?
Right, yeah, you guys talked about doing it on the City of Galleon website, on Facebook page, through the chamber and Experience Galleon. And then the final one was the utility bills.
So it'd be kind of hard, I think, to say, hopefully that's going to reach a lot of people. So, and Julie, can you share that then? You still have that, correct?
Yes, I can share it. I just wanted to make sure, it was okay with council before we forwarded it any further.
Right.
Because you had so many avenues that you guys wanted to send it out, so, yeah.
And then one question that I have before we also send it out while we're all together is, what is the deadline for submission? I don't want this to go on forever, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good.
Do we want to put, a month on it, or, because we're going to have to discuss this at some point in full council, how we're going to be moving with the project. And I think if we have a deadline in mind, that would help with the responses as well.
If Ms. Alt, this is Ivy. That was part of my reservation about going forward with the $90,000. If we could actually get a deadline set and narrow this window, because I feel that we're all getting a sense, whether we're for it or against it or however it's voted upon, that a vote is coming soon. And if we know that we have a deadline, then we can establish another date to add that back to the agenda and approve the $90,000 to go forward after we have an up or down vote. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. So yes, I agree. Thank you.
And Mr. President, may I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Several years ago, we did a similar polling effort, and it was not specific to a certain rec project, but it was kind of assistance in establishing an agenda, multi-year agenda for freeze projects. We learned a lot from that. And so I think the multiple, if you will, access points, you're going to find, and Matt is on now. I think I'm doing this all from memory, but I think we got around 500 or so responses, and they were a mix of online responses and handwritten submitted through the utility office. So I think we're best served if, in order to get the maximum response, if we use multiple sources. I would think that the bill, an insert at this point would go out in the February bills. So council may want to decide whether or not that, based on Kara's comment, if that drags it out too far, then we may be limited to an online response or some of the other tools that Julie was mentioning.
This is Ivy again. Would anybody disagree that maybe 4 weeks, and that would give Ms. Auld a chance to catch up and get all the data she needs to gather to make it a good decision? And I mean, in 2 more council meetings, could we agree to wrap this up by the end of February so we could proceed into March with a clearer picture?
Mrs. Earlston?
Yeah, I think it's sort of standing on its head. I think the driver is when the utility bills go out to 6,000 residents / customers. So that would drive the return on that. So we won't be sending utility bills out, until the end of the month. So, I'm not being disagreeable, Aaron. I think we can.
Oh, sure. That's a
Information
good point.
a month, but
Well, it's the 26th. Well, so would they go out like here, like within the next few days?
And they will go out the first of the month, but if we're going to have an insert, they typically, A1 likes to have the insert information 4 or 5 days prior to the printing of the bills, so they have time to print those up. So I should really have it by tomorrow to make sure we get it in the bill for next week.
so get us that survey, Tammy, or whoever has it, so we can look at it, Nikki and myself, approve it, and kick it off to A1.
And Julie has it, so she'll get it
Yeah,
to
I'm working on sending it right now.
Yeah, you
And
guys
if,
should have that by tomorrow. And the thought behind the utility was to be able to reach the community that does not have internet, computer, and access. So I'd really like to, if possible, make sure that we are able to send those out, because there's a large majority of people that don't have access to the internet.
I couldn't agree more. For a community that is older than, say, average, and may not be as technically oriented. I mean, you look at the number of people who pay their utility bill online, that's most of the people are oriented towards paper. I think we'll get some useful results. I think Matt will tell you as the results come in, there's a jokester in every crowd. So in a community of 10,500, 11,000 people, we'll have a few jokesters who, no matter what we do, will abuse the survey and those sorts of things. But I think to the extent council wants feedback on whether the community is behind the overall project, I think this is a step in the right direction.
Does the newspaper article come out recently? I think it's important too that we get this out and start getting feedback, because it's generated a lot more questions and discussion around the community. I'm sure you all have faced that. So Julie, I'll get that to you
I just
guys.
sent it, so.
What?
If I have,
Mr.
Mr.
One more
President,
quick- I promise
sent
I
it.
won't have any mayor's comments because we haven't got to that yet. I would say it's with a little bit of an ironic reaction that something that has been talked about for 4 or 5 years, that the city has spent money on developing some of the feasibility data on, that all of a sudden people are, oh my gosh, this is something new. Where did this come from? So I think it's better to build consensus around a good idea, but for someone who's been working on it for 5 or 6 years, another month of delay, if you will, is probably not the end of the world. But I'm glad at this point the community is beginning to get interested in the project. Lordy, we've been talking about it since I was about 40.
Okay.
So can we look at a deadline date maybe of 3/1 and that would give us a week or so to kind of analyze and look at the results before the 3/9 council meeting? Would that be doable?
Same day.
I think that's fantastic, because I was actually going to suggest 6 weeks, Miss Alt, but I like your deadline even better. And then we can go into March really focusing on an up or down vote so we can get more clarification. That's wonderful.
Julie, does that give you enough time to be able to get the utility results back? And
It doesn't have anything to do with that, Tammy. I'm going to start to lose my
well,
patience.
no, she was going to help tally that.
I was
We
gonna
will
help
send it
Sally
out.
with it.
She was going to help tally them when they came in. When the results came in, she was going to help do that tally for us.
I'm sure there's plenty of time to get that accomplished. I don't have any opposition to that. No.
So when would those be coming in roughly?
Probably after people got their bills, because the deadline for the electric bills is what, the 21st of the month? So probably the majority of them around that time, I would think.
All right, that
They'll
sounds good.
trickle in and then there'll be a surge to the end like there is with most things that have a deadline associated with them. So I think that's a good time frame. But you know,
Okay. Well, thank you for your work on this, Mrs. Earlston and Ms. Auld. And any other discussion on this? Is there any other discussion in general from the council people? If none, Auditor Baldinger?
Yeah, I have a couple things this evening. First of all, everybody's probably aware that Eunice got the books opened up. The purchase orders are flowing, and as we say in the auditor's office, the floodgates are open and we're up and running for the new year. The other thing is the investment committee will be meeting with Nick Vaquera from Meter tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's the first of 2 required meetings by policy, and the subject will be strategic review. That's it for me.
Okay. Any questions of the auditor?
Mr. Baldwin, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you send me or someone send me a Zoom link to that meeting?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I can.
Doc, it should have been in that email that you got, that you replied to me with the question.
Okay, I'll look again. Thank you.
I'll double check too.
I don't think it's a Zoom link, isn't it a WebEx?
It's a My Teams, Microsoft My Teams meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nick Vaquero set it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Not moving on to Treasurer Sparks, not on, is he?
No, he's not.
Okay, Law Director Palmer. Law Director Palmer?
He might be really delayed again.
Nothing tonight. Thank you. Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And Mayor O'Leary.
I will make it real quick. I think that the discussion about getting more information about the Free Center project, I think that's the right way to go. I support doing that. And I don't want to say much more about the efforts to try to get the engineering moving forward. All that stuff will clarify. They're proceeding as the one piece of legislation that relates to 598 widening. That project continues to move ahead. There is, if you will, a collateral effort to try and include a left turn and a longer left turn, or actually a dedicated left turn on Brant Road. I would call it West Brant Road. So it's facing east. It'd be a left-hand turn towards 30. Our objective is to get a set of plans developed that can be tucked into the overall project. There's a few reasons for it. I think the primary reason to move this now is that the owner of the former Pico property will be moving ahead this spring on some demolition work of the existing now vacant building, vacant for a long time, and the construction of a new building for industrial development. So it makes sense, we think, to include that in the overall project plan. We'll do that if it doesn't cause any sort of delay to the big project. But I'm wanted to let you all know about that activity, and that I'm relatively encouraged that we'll have the financial resources and we'll have the engineering design to have that, as I said a minute ago, tucked into the overall 598 project. So, you know, other than that, I'll respond to any questions, but those are probably the two biggest activities. I do expect next Wednesday, Mr. Triplett, that we'll have a 3 or 4 item agenda. And so, you know, I guess be prepared for that. That represents things that the administration wants to talk about, not to, you know, and that doesn't include Gail's note about the need to have the PCA discussed and anything else council committee members may want to bring forward. So that's about all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn?
Hey, I've got one more thing. I don't want people to be left hanging. There is incremental work. It's not at a glacier pace rather, sort of but we're moving ahead to identify the operational plan and the ongoing ownership plan, if you will, capital plan for the Central Hotel. So if I were living up there, which I'm not, at least right now, I think that I think just as a comment to reassure residents, reassure the community that we're moving ahead. It's moving a little slower than I think that myself or law director or auditor Palmer or Baldinger would like, but I think to those people concerned about that major landmark on the square, we're moving ahead on that. So thank you for that little add-on. But it's will be a big project for the city over the next several years.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody? I don't have anything. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Triplett made the motion, second by Mrs. Earlston to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting hereby adjourned at 8:21. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.